All right. Hi, guys. Good morning. Welcome. Feel free to get up and use the restroom if you need to or get a beverage. Okay, so today's class is going to be well, let me give a preface first. So if you've got a question online, just send a comment or raise your hand. Matt will see that. Otherwise, we had the presentation here locally. So if you guys see me looking off to the side of the screen in Zoom, that's why I'm looking at that. Um, okay, this class, we are setting up a regular Friday. It'll be a luxury focused, we call them master classes, not really mastermind, because there's not necessarily a collective of people. It's just kind of me for now talking to you guys. Um, but that might change. We might, turn this in. Well, it will change. We'll bring in some different people to give their perspective inside and outside the brokerage, or maybe their industry partners, or I guess just other stakeholders. So, but this one, and we're going to call that the League of Luxury. Sorry, I'm a branding marketing guy, so don't kill me with that. Um, so you'll see us start using that, and kind of this big collective that we're doing is going to be called the Powerhouse Producers. I always mess that up. Um, yeah, and this will be kind of like well, we're going to put together basically training and mastermind events and different value add to you guys here locally. But also, if we have an agent that wants to join, Port Charlotte or Tampa or Orlando, something like that, they have access to kind of a lot of the same resources without the brick and mortar location, obviously. So if you see that kind of branding, that's all it is. It's powerhouse producers will be like the group of us, right? And we may add agents from out of state as well. Um, so if that's confusing, I apologize. But okay, so today's again for today, we'll keep this to about an hour. And I mean, man, I could talk forever about some of this stuff. So if I go off on a tangent, just kind of reel me in. Um, but I decided to one of the biggest pet peeves that not a pet peeve, but a common thing that I see with a lot of agents is they get their first deal, right? And you know, they sorry, let me go through and just pause that. You guys should just see me now on the screen, is that right? Yeah, so they get their first deal and or their first luxury client, and who cares how you get that, right? Maybe that's a walk-in lead, or maybe it's a friend or family, or whatever, right? It doesn't matter how you get it, right? So you go through, you learn from that transaction. You learn that wealthy people have just as many problems as unwealthy people, basically, and it's a lot of work, and they're sometimes just as frugal as everyone else. So you go through that process, and then you close the deal. You get the big check. Woo, that's great. It's awesome. You go waste half that on some ridiculous purchase right away. No judgment here. But then, like, what do you do from that, right? Most agents are kind of, I say, like a one and done sort of thing, right? Where they close that transaction and then they're kind of right back to their daily routine and work in their sphere, or perhaps not doing that at all, and they fall out of that really quickly. All right, and then you go back in their MLS performance, and it's like 300, 500, 700. 4 million and then 300, 400, back to normal. So there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. And if that's your deal, then, this isn't necessarily the right class for you. But um, there are certain things that you could and should be doing once you get that opportunity to leverage that into more business, right? So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today and you can apply this to non-luxury stuff too, right? Once you get a transaction, how do you like leverage that into additional business? So that's the focus of today. So let me get back into sharing my screen again. Okay. All right. So you have my lovely image there. All right. So I just kind of explained this, right? The one and done agent. You know, all of us claim we're luxury. I shouldn't say that, but a lot of if you go on people's Instagrams and Facebooks and things, it's Tom, luxury agent, right? Sounds good, right? And I know you don't do this, Tom, but maybe some agents will kind of fake the fake about, they're maybe take a picture in front of a fancy car or some of these agents, in bigger markets do like they'll rent a private jet. I'm sure you've seen all that influencer stuff. Um, so for one, well, if it works for you and you make money out of it, then do do you, right? Um, but I'll say that people kind of see through most of that stuff, at least if you're working at that level consistently. So you don't want to be that agent. You want to be an actual luxury agent. Um, so again, this is kind of I kind of promote myself on there a little bit. Sorry about that. But this is kind of the secret to my success is when I get a transaction, no matter how you get it, or you pay for it, or it's a family or whatever, just dumb luck, that's fine. What I like to think I do really well is leveraging that transaction into follow-on work. So, okay. So I just talked about that. This is kind of the class overview. All right. So there's basically 5 steps, right? And some of these are harder than others. And I'll spend more time on those. And some of these are rather intuitive, but sometimes they're not. You need to develop a process for that too. Obviously, when you get that luxury client, let's say it's a listing side. So this is going to be geared towards getting a listing. Um, Step one is sell the property, right? Duh. Like everyone knows that, right? Um, but always, right? And you need to be very genuine about this, right? So everything that you're doing, although you're going to do steps to like set yourself up for future business, you need to maintain that genuine relationship with your client, right? So um, don't do open houses just for the sake of getting buyer clients. Now, maybe that's kind of an ulterior motive, but the main motivation should be to sell the house, right? So when you're having a conversation with your clients, never mention anything about buyer leads and hey, this isn't a waste of my time because I'm going to get future clients anyway, right? They want to always know that you're working your priorities for them to sell the house. I can tell you out of the hundreds of transactions that I've had, I think I sold 1 or 2 maybe at an open house. I know that's just me. I know some people are very successful at that. Um, so your chances of selling at an open house are very low, but obviously you still need to do it. Um, so I'm going to take basically 3 things that in selling the house that I do a little differently and that most agents don't do. And this is gonna include some shameless EXP plugs in here. Um, so the first one, I kind of break these out, so I'll go into it. Product placement. Okay, you guys, if you guys know anything about marketing and advertising, some of the most successful advertising is when they place, let's say Coca-Cola, right? And you're watching a movie and the guy, here we go. What am I? Callaway Blue, right? So, and they're kind of holding it in a way that you can see the label, right? Or they put it out on the table and very prominently. So Coca-Cola obviously pays to be placed in that media. Um, so why not do the same thing with real estate, right? I'll tell you, there's 2 things with this. So, and what I mean by that typically is you've got your listing, you have your house, you're going to place an advertisement directing people or informing them about that house into an article or a piece of media. And I've got 4 examples here that I've done in the past. So CEO Weekly, Digital Journal. I can't read the third one there. Sorry. New York Times. I think this is LA Weekly. Um, so basically, each one of those were, a story about something that is kind of related to real estate, but not necessarily. It might be something like, there's a story in the Digital Journal that's talking about wealthy people relocating businesses to Florida, right? Tax reasons, cost of living, blah blah blah. And within that story, it says, something like, and they're buying these luxurious waterfront properties, right? And here's an example. And then it goes into my listing, not in a hard sell way where it, lists the square footage and stuff, but in a soft sell, it talks about the home, has pictures, and then gives all my information, obviously, if they have interest in it. And there's a link in there to the house somewhere. So really kind of, I'll say subtle, not necessarily subtle, but kind of subtle placement of your, so really it's a story about something else, but in reality, it's an advertisement for your home, right? Um, so does that sell? Honestly, I don't know that it does sell. I don't know that a lot of people are looking at CEO Weekly and they're going to turn around and buy a $8 million house in Siesta Key. Um, Maybe it does, but more importantly, you're establishing with your luxury client, or if you're going on listings, that you do things out of the ordinary. And I'll tell you, this has worked for me many times at that luxury level, because frankly, no one else is doing that that I'm aware of, at least. Yes. It's a great question. So Tom here asked, how do you get those opportunities, or how do you do that? Right? That's a cool idea, but how do you do that? So there's several ways actually. There are sites like Fiverr, if you're aware of Fiverr. It's just I have a link in the presentation. It's literally fiverr.com. And there's other sites like that. They're basically paid gig sites, right? And if you go on there and you search story placement or product placement or guest article, it'll come up with a bunch of gigs. And basically, there's staff writers or people that are affiliated with these publications that basically will write the article. You pay them. This is going to sound, crazy, but you pay them an amount of money. They write the article. You give the information about the house. They put it all in there, or you do it yourself, right? And a lot of a common theme in all of our classes is going to be is using AI and ChatGPT. Literally, if you go on ChatGPT right now and you say, "Write me a story about wealthy people relocating to Florida," and include a product placement about this listing, and then you copy and paste your listing description in there, it'll spit out a unique article that includes photos and everything. It looks like somebody professionally wrote it. So sometimes I'll just provide that basically. No, not CEO Weekly. So it'll be a person. So on Fiverr, it'll be, Rob Jones. Most of the time it's offshore. It'll be somebody in Indonesia or something like that. So they'll be the one that actually takes the story and they submit it for you. So when you log on and when your clients actually see the story, it's not, written by Tom. It's written by whoever that contributor is. So you can go on there. I mean, there are, you have to kind of sort through what's important, what is relevant and what isn't. There's a lot of blogs that'll do that, kind of hide low value sort of things. But then there's also ones that are high value publications, and obviously the prices are more for those. Yeah, so the question was, since my name would be on it, that'll help you with search engine optimization and stuff like that. Yeah, not a whole lot. I mean, that might show up on like page 10 or something like that. I mean, I guarantee if you Google your name, there's 30 other sites that are just more prominent, right, with you listed prominently. So really, it's not necessarily towards to that. It can't help. I mean, it can't hurt, because you're probably. I would always recommend if you've got a CRM web or IDX website or something like that to link to that directly instead of putting in the MLS listing. That way, if somebody does click on it, they're in your yeah, they're in your CRM funnel. That's right. Yeah. So the question was, what do you do with that, right? So yeah, so it's published, and then I typically share that on social media, like a screenshot maybe from my phone, and then add a link to the story, so people on social media can see it. But then it gives you something to report back to your client too. Hey, just so you know, we're in MLS, everything's active. I also have these three product placements. This one's in CEO Weekly, whatever the publication is. It just kind of shows them that you're doing stuff that's outside of the box. And then I perhaps more importantly is when you go on your listings or present or listing presentations or listing appointments, you can have that conversation and literally, you can either give them links to the stuff or just kind of print it out and say, because the question is always going to be, you're selling a $10 million home. Why should I pay you 300 grand? Right. They may not ask you that. They probably won't ask you that, but everybody thinks that. Right. So you got to continue to show that you're doing things above and beyond. And I know that, you know, very limited amount of agents do something like this. What you'll typically see is like, I don't want to name names, but like maybe a top Sotheby's agent might do, they've got a connection with like Sarasota Magazine, right? Or paid placements with them, which is also very effective. But they would never go outside of that and do some national publication. Um, so you can use the site like Fiverr, or you can go full on and use a regular PR person. And if you Google search that, um, you would just do PR for guest posts or PR for product placement, in media, something like that. And there'll be companies that basically do all this for you, right, based on your listing, and they have connections. They're probably using the same people, obviously, honestly, in Indonesia. Um, but it's all automated. So this stuff well, it can be cheap. So I guess cheap is a relative term, but I'll say to get in like New York Weekly or something like that, it might be like 200 bucks. Some of the stuff might be like $50. Some might be like 10 bucks. If you try to get in something like Forbes or like a no crap national publication that has a lot of viewership, I mean that stuff can be like $1,000, $2,000. Um, so I would say maybe don't do that unless you really need to. Um, but as you see, there's a common theme with luxury is when you get a luxury client and even trying to get a luxury client, costs are just more. Now it's not exponentially more, but you're going to spend more money on marketing. It's going to be different and higher end. You're going to have a higher, a customer acquisition cost because you're doing different things and sending flyers to actually get in the door. Um, okay, so enough about that. So EXP Luxury. So I've got some shameless promoting about EXP Luxury. Um, if you don't know about that, we can have a conversation. There's nothing preventing anyone from becoming an EXP Luxury certified agent. There's two ways to qualify. Basically, you can do it through your production, and I think you need like three $1 million closings within 2 years. If you don't have that, then you can just take the course. There's an EXP luxury course that you can take. There's a nominal fee, and sometimes they actually run them for free. Um, yeah, there's one starting on the 26th, but they run those continuously. And if you ever go to an EXP event, right, they have different EXP cons and group gatherings. They usually have them there for free as like part of a seminar. Um, so if you need, and again, you can, just be barely qualifying, right? To have just, let's say you do a regular deal a year or something like that. It doesn't preclude you because they want to, they want to grow agents to be higher producing luxury agents, right? So they want to give you these tools so that you can get those deals, right? It's not necessarily like you have to have made it before you can get in this club, which is kind of unique about them compared to a lot of our competing brokerages where if you don't sell it, then you're not getting into the club. So I listed a few things here. There are a lot of advantages with that. Different. I'll say it's kind of a boutique brand within EXP. For one, you basically upload your listing and they publish it for you on, I've got them all listed there, Mansion Global, James Edition, Rob Report, a lot of stuff that luxury people actually read or use to search for things. Um, I don't read any of this stuff, right? Does anyone read any of this stuff I mean, I'd go on Wall Street Journal occasionally, but But you know, if you're that kind of, but I'm not an ultra wealthy person either, right? But if I was into like, high priced cars and Bentleys and all the watches and stuff, I guess I would read James Edition, right? Or pretend like I read it maybe. So again, even if this doesn't actually help sell the property, it gives you ammunition when you're going on your listing appointment, to say, what else am I doing that's outside of the MLS, right? So I'm also going to advertise in this because MLS doesn't feed these sites. You have to, they're all premium prescriptions that if individually, Tom, you went out and said, hey, Wall Street Journal, I want to put my listing in there, they would do that, but it would be a very big number. They'd charge you to do that. So EXP, with the power of volume, is able to negotiate that rate, and just include that as part of your membership. So the next thing I've got on there is global reach. So we've got 95,000 agents. Sorry, I don't have the numbers on there. Is it on the slide? 90. It's always growing. So I think it was 95,000 agents at one point. Oop, lost us. Can you see me? There we go. 95,000 agents over however many countries it is. And again, not to toot on EXP, but it's a large brokerage, right? So what that allows you to do, because we don't do coming soons anymore. You're not allowed to do that if you're a MLS or if you're a realtor. But you can advertise within your brokerage as early as you want or completely off market, right? That's the thing, is once it goes outside of the brokerage, they expect you to put it in the MLS within 48 hours or 24 hours. Um, what that means is if you have a client that says, hey, I don't want to list it, but if somebody gave me whatever, 10 million for it, I'd sell. And honestly, that happens more often than you'd think at the luxury level, right? It's kind of like a make me move sort of number. So if you and so let's say that's what the deal is, you can list that. It's not going to go on MLS. That's a deal between you and the client. And then it's kind of an off market. Now, usually what happens is, more common is you get a signed listing agreement. Um, you put in your owner's authorization because you got to do photos and, it's going to give you 3 weeks basically. Um, you can list it then, right? Just take a couple photos of the outside and then put it up in our internal listing within EXP. And then you've got 95,000 agents that are seeing that, right? And people that are international, and you can promote it within the brokerage. So that's just a powerful tool. Besides, you'll get referrals as well, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Okay, the last thing on the slide was extraordinary presentations. Basically, what I'm trying to say there is that you basically, sorry, let me get back on the share screen. With EXP, obviously we get professional Canva accounts with all of their templates. You are just, and especially as a luxury agent, you're open to more, I'll say, upscale branding. It's kind of has like a really rich kind of boutique feel. It's black and gold, right? And not like the Steelers black and gold, but like an actual gold kind of cool color. And it really just kind of sets you apart and looks like a really luxury, kind of rich, bespoke kind of brand. And then they offer all sorts of, you know, you basically, if you're going to a listing presentation, you can upload one photo and it sticks all of that photo in the different ads in Rob Report and all the Wall Street Journal, as a template. And it kind of shows the client what the ad will look like, right? So you can go there and like, hey, this is your house. Look, it's going to be in this. And then obviously, there's a whole listing presentation that's already prepared that you just put your name in, and maybe you put in some of your past sales and things like that. And you can print that out here if you want to, or go to Sir Speedy or Kinko's or whatever they call the FedEx places now. Get that done a little more professionally, like bound, maybe with a little cover on it. Or you can get an actual hard, like a book made that has a hard cover, that when you go to a listing presentation, it's a hardcover thing you're giving them, right? And it's got your bio and your past sales. Or if you don't have any past sales, you point to the brokerage, right? I've got a bunch of stuff that I'll let you just put in there, and it's my sales, but it makes it sound like it's us, like collectively as a team. And then so it's really something nice that you can leave behind. So your charisma is going to get you the listing probably, but when you leave something like that behind, again, it just shows that you're spending the money. You have a really kind of luxurious branding that you're going to provide them, and obviously, you're willing to. Now, these are not inexpensive. I haven't done them yet, but I think they're 60 bucks a piece or something like that. So, I mean, you know, listen, 60 bucks is 60 bucks. But again, if you're going to a $10 million listing appointment, right? I would spend 50, 60 bucks on that, right? I do more than that in many ways. So again, it's something that kind of sets you apart. Now, when we were the independent brokerage, we had beautiful books made, and it breaks my heart that we can't use those anymore with the branding. Um, but the same concept, right? To give you something really different, unique that you could leave behind. We still have a copy of those laying around. So, all right, let me go on to the next page. All right, so this is I'm gonna let you watch this. Is that playing on your Zoom too? Okay. I hope you guys can hear that as well on Zoom. It's almost over, I promise. Okay. So that may not be everyone's cup of tea, right? That's all right. But um, that is a good example, I believe, and that was a $15 million listing that sold last year on the market for 4 days on Siesta Key. So that was a nice little paycheck for sure. But when you, I've got some statistics on the slide there. Believe it or not, only 35% of luxury listings actually feature a video, right? It'll just be listing, standard photography, maybe with some drones and stuff. And then I'll tell you, 99.9% of the videos that are used are just going to be your standard. Now they may jazz them up with some special effects, but just a standard property video, basically, right? Um, so what's becoming more popular is on social media, at least, not necessarily in MLS. And this, obviously, the one you just saw wouldn't be an MLS either. Is like a walkthrough, right? Where there's an agent standing in the driveway, and maybe they say, "Hey, blah blah blah, let's take a look at my listing," and they start walking, right? And then it usually cuts to different things, and maybe then they're in the kitchen, whatever. Um, so that's a little better. That's more cinematic, in my opinion. But again, everyone's doing that, right? So although, well, I shouldn't say that. Not everyone's doing it, but there's a high number of agents that are doing that. So how do you the thing you need to think about always with marketing is how do you look at this from a different perspective and think bigger, right? Actually, I kind of believe that in all things in life. There's always like the easy path, right? And then there's like well, what if I did this sort of path? And anyone that knows me knows that I do that to a fault sometimes. Um, but with video presentation, I really think you need to kind of think outside of the box, right? So with this, there was these viral videos of a couple models, and they were like clinking their fingernails on Bentleys, and then whispering into the microphone, and then doing something else. And there was a Ferrari, and she had this accent. It was like Ferrari, whatever the Italian pronunciation of that is. And they went viral, and there was like millions of views. And if you don't know about this, that's all right too. I obviously spend too much time on social media. Um, so the intent was to kind of mimic that, right? In a real estate world of, she's whispering in. So it's like an AMSR, is that right? ASMR? Whatever that, like, the videos where it's like really it's like sound effects, right? And they're whispering, or you don't know this, Tom? You should, oh, this is like a multi-billion dollar business. Yeah. Anyway, so it was meant to mimic that, right? And since then I've done this for another listing. I won't show that video, but same effect, right? We just EXP Luxury just showed that video, and I got like 30. It was like the most views they ever had. I looked, because I'm that guy. I looked on their website. It was the most stuff that anyone's ever looked at. So, um, yes. Yeah. So the question was, what do how do you incorporate your clients, wishes, and maybe they've got, maybe they're very conservative, and they don't want to show a woman in a bikini getting in their pool and things like that. um, Always, first and foremost, I wouldn't necessarily run the creative by them, but I would have a discussion about, hey, I'm going to do this video, it's going to be a little different. It's going to have this scene, what do you think, right? um, Chances are by then you will have figured out their personality and traits anyway. Absolutely. Yeah. Like my big San Remo listing, right? It's an older couple, a little more conservative. I would never, do something like that. So we shifted focus. Um, and again, I wouldn't, please don't copy my thing actually, but because I probably will use this again. But I just, you need to do things differently. And I'll tell you that people, it doesn't matter what the industry is, when you're advertising, they connect with other people always, right? They connect less with the product, which in this case would be the house, and more with like the emotional story that's being told about a person, a kid, an animal, right? I don't know that maybe I would do an animal, feature a dog in my, there we go. I got a great idea. Yeah. So I would always say, you always want to maintain some sort of emotional story with a person, right? So maybe it's a house, and you're showing how a family would vacation at this house, and they're cooking dinner, and they're in the pool swimming around, and so that one, that you're attracting a different audience that's in the families, and that sort of thing. But again, people are connecting with the family, and when they see the family in the house, they're imagining their family in the house, right? Just like when you see a Coca-Cola ad, and it's like some sports hero and they're drinking Coke, right? You don't care about the Coke. You want to be the sports hero who's drinking the Coke because they just won the Super Bowl, or whatever the commercial is. So think that same way when you're doing your videos. Again, it's actually not terribly expensive. I think that video was maybe like 750. Again, this is relative, for the video itself. And then I had to hire, she's an actor that was on that Siesta Key TV show, so I had to hire her. I won't tell you what I paid her. That would just be inappropriate. But not a ton. And then so it's a little different price point than giving, your videographer $200 to do a video. Um, but again, for a $15 million house, it's worth me spending, $2,000 on a video, sort of thing. Um, so again, that one actually I think did help sell the house. Well, I don't know. It sold in 4 days, so I like to think that it did. Um, but again, it just shows your clients that you're thinking outside of the box. You're doing things that are different from the norm, and you're doing things that are definitely different from the last agent that came in there to try to talk to them and get the listing, right? Because they're all going to say, yeah, we put it, broker X, and we have this monthly magazine that comes out, and yeah, my house is in there, but there's 400 other homes from, all over, and it comes out in once a month, and who really gets that thing, right? And who really looks at it? Um, Again, I guess I'm a shameless plug for me and EXP, but so you want to be different than that, and this shows that you're different for sure. So, and again, with any of this stuff, and I'll talk about this at the end. This is a summary. So if you have specific questions, call me, text me. I'm available. I used to say always, but not necessarily always. And I'll walk you through and I'll tell you exactly who I used, what the process was for like booking, an actor or actors, how I laid out the storyline and the script and all that sort of stuff. Again, ChatGPT is a wonderful thing. I didn't use it for this, but if you're just stuck and you want creative ideas for a real estate video, literally type in, I want creative ideas for a real estate video, and it'll pump out 10 of them. And six of them are going to be ridiculous, but four of them you're like, oh, that's different. Right. So, again, I would use that as much as you can. Okay. Let's see. So, step two, double in the deal. Okay. Like again, duh, right? You want to double on the deal. Um, but again, you can't just sit back and hope that somebody on Zillow doesn't call like the Zillow agent, but they scroll down and see, hey, Coda, come on in, your number and call you and call you directly. Now that does happen. But you know, the key, especially in this market, is you need to attract buyers and actively reach them, not passively. Passively, as you put it in MLS, it syndicates to, Redfin and Homes.com and all those sites, and somebody calls you. That's passive. Active is, all right, where are my buyers coming from? And I'll go over this to the next page, right? Figure out where that is for whatever, because it's different for different price ranges. Generally the same, but you can get into real specifics with it. Okay, so I know they're coming from X, Y, and Z. How do I reach them? How do I show my house to that buyer in Chicago, right? So, and I'll talk about ways to do that. And then, how do I capture them from there and then bring them down into my market to buy this house? And if they don't buy this house, I'm going to show them six other homes, right? And maybe they'll buy one of those. So it's kind of a double edged, not a double edged, but it's something that's very beneficial to one, doubling in a deal, but if they don't like your house, to getting buyer clients. Um, Again, the whole theme of this is you've got that luxury client or that luxury listing. How do I squeeze that for additional work? And one thing is advertising that piece of property or that product to get additional buyers, even if it's not for that, it's additional luxury buyers from feeder markets. So I'll talk more about that. Okay, so again, I went on ChatGPT. Now, I happen to know this anecdotally because I do a lot of deals kind of in this range. But if you just, I think I literally put in, um, tell me where in the last year most luxury buyers are coming from in the Sarasota market. And it spit almost this out verbatim, right? So it gives you the top five markets, New York, Chicago. No, this is all normal, right? New York, Chicago, California, which is increasing. And then Boston, kind of Northeast corridor for me. Sorry if you're from Boston. I kind of lump that in with like New York, Philadelphia, kind of that Northeast bowl of traffic. And then Texas, which surprised me. Sorry, Matt's from Texas, but obviously you relocated. But there are a large group of people that are well, they tried Texas and they just didn't like it. And I get it. I've been to Texas. I don't know that I would like it. No offense if you're in Texas right now. Um, and again, if you're a luxury buyer, now I'm going to generalize. There are less high-end luxury markets in Texas than there are in Florida, right? And certainly less kind of oceanfront properties. Not all of Texas, but the majority of it, the way it's just been developed and just the way it is, a lot of that is not developed or usable space or owned by whoever, whatever oil company happens to own the beach line there. Yeah. Okay, so do that. Again, this is very important. You need to know where they're coming from, right? So before you can advertise to them, you need to know who it is, right? And don't go outside of this, right? The stuff I'm going to show you is it's not expensive necessarily, um, but you don't want to run an ad advertising your luxury property to somewhere that usually doesn't come, right? If Minnesota, right, or wherever. There's not a lot that would come here typically. So really focus on like the top markets, right? Everybody, if you're walking around right now, every single person you talk to is going to be from Chicago, basically. It seems like right now. Again, I'm generalizing, but like that market, New York, you can't go wrong, those sort of things. Okay. Let's see. Sorry. So within that is build your referral network. Okay. So this would seem a little obvious, but it's not necessarily. So again, this part we're talking about how you double in a deal, how you attract buyers and feeder markets to your listing. As an EXP agent, we have a referral link, right? There's actually a referral website. It's linked here. I won't go to it, but you can see, let's say you want to work with people in Chicago, right? You'll go on there and you put in the city, I think, and it shows you all the Chicago agents. And luxury division has their own portal, right? So you can, well, you can see this in the public facing side too. Look up agents in the luxury side. Or, we are part of the fast forward movement within EXP. If you don't know what that means, you should come talk to me about that specifically. But it's just a collective of agents that all are in this same, basically kind of revenue share model. So there's a lot of agents that you can choose from that would be incentivized to help you. But also, what you're going to do is if you know buyers are coming from Chicago, reach out to Chicago, the top agents in Chicago, right? Give them what I typically do is give them a very good referral rate, right? So the normal referral, I don't know if we're allowed to talk that or not, but every referral is negotiable, of course. But my average referral is 25%. Maybe you offer them 30% or 35%, right? So you're going to give them more of a referral fee, right? So what does that do? If they have a client that they know is going to move down to Sarasota or looking for property, hey, Tom is going to pay me 35% instead of me just going on there and randomly picking some hit or lose agent that's only going to pay me 25%, right? Um, so you basically reach out to them, and there's whole scripts involved with this. Don't do this haphazardly. There's scripts that's, hey, Fred or Mary. Sorry, I'm using really strange common names. Hey, Mary, I'm an agent here in Sarasota. I want to build a referral network, whatever, build that out. And then, have your offer in, right? I'm going to offer you 35%. Also, I'm going to send you a booklet on Sarasota, right? Whether it's digital or paper, something that agent can then use when they know a client is interested in Sarasota or they hear their client wants to relocate to Florida, or whatever, right? Some piece of media that they can use that has their information on it, right? Very important. So you're going to send them a booklet that has Mary's contact information. Now you're going to be on there somewhere as like, hey, I am her referral partner in Sarasota, right? They're going to figure that out. But it allows Mary to take that and say, oh, this isn't Tom's stuff I'm trying to give out. It's got me, like I'm adding value to my client that is relocating to Florida. Here, client, take this book. It talks about the transportation, the schools, the sports teams, all that sort of general crap that you can build about Sarasota and the beaches and all that stuff, that gets people excited. So you can spend as much time or money on that as you want, right? I would say just build like a digital sort of PDF sort of thing. I don't think we have any templates built for that. We might actually. Well, we have hard books. Actually, we have old Sarasota books that again we probably cost us $30 to make, and they're just sitting in the back because they have our old logos on it, right? But something like that, right, would be the high end, right? That you're probably not going to send $30 books to I'll say random referral agents, but you can build a little, sort of a PDF file that, you plug and play different agent names and maybe their photo, um, and then you send that, right? So do you send that to 10,000 agents in Chicago? No. Go through and kind of pick, there's different ways you can look at production numbers for agents in out of markets. Again, one is Chat GPT. Believe it or not, you can get that information. Um, or maybe it's just somebody that you like their photo, or you just feel like you could vibe with them. That's fine, whatever. It's your referral, right? So send it to a limited amount, and then there's the go through the process, right? So you're gonna probably email them first, right, and then give them a call, see if they got your email, and tell them you're gonna send them something. So it's a whole process, like anything else, right? You're basically trying to attract referral agents at that point, right? So again, just another way to build that network to get you buyers for your listing specifically, but for anything, right? And you're going to send these out to the feeder markets. So Chicago, New York, California, specifically in California, I think they listed Los Angeles County and San Diego. Um, so make the book, spend a little bit of time. Maybe you send it out to 20 agents in each of those markets. Is that a lot of work? You're putting like, let's say it's 100 different photos you're going to stick in there. Um, so yeah, it's a little bit of work. Maybe you just focus on one market. But that's ways you'll grow your just buyer leads in general, right? And that's a beautiful thing. So, all right. Any questions on that? Again, I could talk forever on probably each one of these. So just going to give you a taste. Yeah. Yeah. So the question was, does it have to be EXP, or can you send it to a different a brokerage, and then it's a coffee table book or something like that instead of individual agents? Maybe it's a brokerage asset. Yeah, of course, right? Um, you know, Sometimes I'll dare say the best agents in markets aren't necessarily EXP, right? It's not a knock on EXP, but there's a lot of competing brokerages, right? If you send this to Manhattan, there's you're not going to send it to what's his name, Sirhan or something like that, because he's going to throw it in the garbage. Um, but maybe there's a Elman, whatever the brokerages are, right? That just have different presence in different markets. So yeah, I would send it to them, and yeah, maybe there is a brick and mortar location, and send it to try and find out who the admin is there, the office manager in that capacity, and say, hey, this is an asset for everybody, you know and then maybe you spend a little bit more money on it because it's going to an office that has shared agents. But yeah, that's a great idea, actually. Okay. All right. So this is we're going to talk about meta ads. Meta, is the combination of Instagram and Facebook and whatever else Mark Zuckerberg is doing at the moment. Um, I guess MMA fights and working out is kind of what his thing is right now. Um, but I'm a big fan of Meta because it allows you to, it's kind of like a one-stop shop for ads, and ads that are relatively inexpensive, and you can just do a lot of different things with them. So again, you always have to figure out. So the goal here is to attract buyers to your listing, right? Now you can do the same thing without your listing, or maybe you're an EXP agent and you want to attract agents, right, to join you or sponsor them, right? So this same philosophy, it doesn't matter about the product or the ad. This is basically how you do that. And we'll probably go into, it may not be in the luxury class. We might just do this in the production class, like how you actually go into because there's like a management side to Facebook, where if you have a business account, you can actually run ads and show exactly where you want to post them, and how much you want to spend and which markets and all this stuff. Um, but for the purposes of this discussion, did my video go out again? Can you see? Oh, it did. Jeez. Oh, come on. You got to stop me, brother. Um, can somebody just pull that thing out and put it back in? but I'll continue here. So first thing is find out who you need to market to, right? So obviously we just did that, right? Through ChatGPT. It told us, there we go. Sorry, guys. It told us New York, Chicago, LA, Boston, Dallas. Um, so that is called geo targeting. So if anyone ever says I'm gonna run geo targeted ads, um, for one, just it's ridiculous to ever have that in common conversation, right? So they shouldn't geo-targeting. Um, but all that means is I'm going to run ads specific to an area, right? And Meta or Facebook, Instagram allows you to do that. Now, they used to allow you to target specific streets and neighborhoods, and you can do that for different industries. But we have what's the rules? I forget what it's called, but basically, yeah, fair housing, because there's the ability to, if I'm going to target a specific neighborhood, then am I really, what's the motivation for that, right? Is that racially based? Is that income based? Yeah. So they don't allow you to do that anymore, and that's the right move. But for different industries, like if I'm trying to sell watches, right, I can target only. I'm only going to run this in this area because I think that they can afford it, right? To me, there's still an opportunity for people to abuse that, but whatever. But in our industry, you basically say Sarasota, and I think it gives you like a 15-mile radius around there, right? And that's about as far down as you can go as far as geo-targeting, which is fine. You're still able to pick specific areas. Yes, Tom. Yep. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about that next. Yep. Yeah. So the question was if they allow you to send it to people that like certain things, right? Or Forbes magazine or whatever. Yeah. So that's the second thing is so you pick the area and then it asks you if there's any interests. So that's where you would plug in things like, and there's key things that you should actually do in there. So luxury real estate, again, this is for luxury clients. Luxury real estate, right? So what does that mean? That means in their analytics, whoever that person is in Chicago, they'll scroll through and they'll spend time if they see a luxury property and maybe they'll click on it for more information, right? So it gathers, again, this is all Big Brother, right? So it gathers all that information about you, Tom, and then runs that advertisement to you because it tries to get specific at your wants. So yeah, you're going to use luxury real estate, Florida, or Florida living, Sarasota, second homes, vacation homes, high-end brands. I find this less effective, honestly, because a lot of people that are looking at Rolexes and things are broke, right? Just they are. We are, right? No judgment here. But they're not necessarily the same people that can actually afford a luxury property. Um, so what does that do, right? If I'm targeting Chicago, right? So I've done that geographic area, and one of the interests is Sarasota. That means they've probably been to Sarasota, or they have family or friends in Sarasota, or for whatever reason, Sarasota is already kind of on their mind. Um, so that is a much better potential prospect or market to advertise in than someone that has never been here, that doesn't think about Florida, hates Florida. You know what I mean? So I always do interested in Sarasota, Florida, and from Chicago, interested in Sarasota, Florida. That narrows the audience down to a much more manageable number, which is also less expensive to advertise in front of because the larger the audience, right? Let's say you put something in that tells you, well, the audience in Chicago is 100,000 people that live in Chicago and like Rolexes, right? That's 100,000 people. You can't run 100,000 impressions as an ad. That's just too expensive, right? You'll see, and we won't get into this now, but you might be able to afford, 1,000, 800, something like that. So you're just kind of scattered within that 100,000 people. Whereas if you put in Sarasota, Florida, that number might be like, no, it's still going to be big, but the number like 10,000 or something that's more manageable, that is more efficient for you to reach, basically. Okay, I already talked about the warm leads with strong intent and a higher conversion. All right, so why it works. All right, pro tips. So one thing that I do in these sort of ads, again, I'm a big believer in video content just in general. So the trend for everything is getting away getting away from textual sort of advertising. We've already done that, and then Facebook came, and then it became pictures, right? Everyone's looking at photos of what their class, how fat their classmates are, and all that sort of stuff. I'm a big guy, so I can say that. Um, and then that is still there, and for a large demographic in Sarasota, it tends to be age based, right? So the older you are, again, I'm generalizing, but you're still into Facebook, right? And that's your social media if you have that vice. Um, but then we've kind of gone out of that. So Instagram, and the Instagram, there's a lot of photos on there as well, but they're really geared towards video and specifically short form video. So short form video is, by definition, it's like 10 to 15 seconds of high, energetic, engaging video because I'm going to generalize again. I'm going to get in trouble here. Generally, the younger you are, they feel the less willing you're going to spend on a text ad or a photo ad. It is, high energetic video, and you're looking at that and you give it 5 seconds and then you're on to the next. I don't necessarily agree with that for everybody, obviously. But it is the trend is video content, kind of short to the point. So I recommend using that, right? So I always do a video for my listings, even if it's a $200,000 condo. Now I'm not going to do a cinematic video, but I'll do a property video. I just always do, right? And they'll give you, your minute and a half video. You pay them their fee. Depending where it's at, you might have drones in there or not, or if there's a something terrible by it, you don't want to point that out in the high, you don't want to see that there's a dump next to it, right? So you don't do the drones. Um, and then I've got that video, and I'll cut that up. I'll do short videos, snippets, and advertise with that, or long form as well, because some people, once they different demographics want to look at the whole thing, the whole 90-second thing. But I always use that. I don't use photos. Um, and really, even the text, the like whatever you post it with, is less important than the video content itself, right? So if you're doing video and there's a voice, always do a voiceover thing on there. Again, if you don't know how to do this, it's fine. Let's come talk to me. But people want to look, and generally they're not going to have their sound on, right? So if you have all this cool music and stuff, that's great, but most people they're not going to hear that. So always have, if somebody's talking, have the closed captions. Is that I guess what it's called, right? Um, so have that on, but always use video and always push video. Uh, and for the story, for the textual part of it, again, I'm going to keep saying this to you, but use Chat GPT, right? Or whatever your AI program is, and just get on there and say, I want to do a post on Facebook that advertises this house in a an energetic or whatever eye-catching original way, and then I just put a colon and cut and paste the listing description right there and hit enter, and it'll spit out a post with relevant hashtags and all the crap that you're supposed to, the emojis. So if you ever seen emoji on anything that I post, please know that I did not do that. I did not go through the emoji catalog and choose, the leprechaun or whatever that is, right? I don't, I'm not kind of a creative guy. So someone always does that, or something does that for me. It's scary to think, but okay. So that is geo-targeted meta ads in a nutshell. Again, I could speak for hours and hours about this. Um, but they do work if you do them effectively. Um, more often than not, you'll get buyer clients that don't want to buy your house, but they want to come down to Florida, and they start engaging you, right? And I don't necessarily have a high conversion rate on this, um, but there are some agents that do all of their work off of social media, and well, a lot of them just do organically. They don't have to advertise their posts, but um, Yeah. Okay. And okay, so step three. All right, so you sold the listing, you double ended it, right? So you found a buyer, you brought it to your deal, right? So there's two transactions. All right, I'm going to go over on this. Sorry, guys, we're at an hour. I'll try and speed through this. So help the seller buy again. Yeah, okay. Of course, I'm going to help. They're selling their place. They're going to buy somewhere, typically, right? Um, so this is very important. And I think when I go into listing presentations, I have this discussion, right? Um, where are you going? And I formalize that process. So if I know they're going across town, then I try to represent them, right? So, and you see a lot of this now. People are moving at the luxury level. People are moving off of the Keys, and let's say they're moving inland, right? Because they don't like the storms, their place got wiped out, whatever. I have a client that is selling their house on Casey Key. They just bought in the Founders Club, right, which is inland a little bit. So I got that listing. I bought the house. Now they bought the house before they sold, which is awesome. But I had that conversation in the beginning, right? And what that allows me to do, me typically, what I do is I'll offer a discount on listing their house, right? If they're going to buy with me, right? Maybe I'll take a 2% commission instead of, again, all commissions are negotiable. That is my legal disclaimer. But I will give a discount on the listing side because I would get, yeah, you know, the people that are selling on Casey Key. So, and I did. I offered that. They were very happy to for me to do that, and I, you know, collected the full 3% on the buyer side when they bought in Founders Club. But let's say they're not staying local, right? And this is probably more often at the luxury level. They're selling their house. Whatever. They are no longer allowed to work remotely, which is another one of my clients, and their board recalled them to Scottsdale. So for that client, for me specifically, they already had a house in Scottsdale, so I couldn't sell them something there. But if you know they're just leaving, get a referral. Build that. Don't make it a casual, hey, I can help you out sort of thing. Pre-plan that. Have a script prepared. Have it in your email. Hey, and you got to add value, right? Now, why would I listen to you? Because I am connected with this, right? For me, or EXP Luxury, I can tell you exactly, you know, what they sold, you know, kind of give them production numbers, add value. Like, why would they do this? Well, because I can actually hook you up with somebody that sells stuff, not just some random agent off of Zillow that is going to be the one and done that we talked about in the beginning, right? This is an agent that knows this specific neighborhood. They're used to working in this price point, you know, blah, 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 right? Build that in, right? Maybe that's not something you have a detailed discussion in the listing appointment because you're trying to win the listing. But mention it, and very shortly after, right, once they've said yes, start having that conversation immediately. Because as soon as they start preparing their house to list, they're probably already looking online, right? So before they start seeing stuff, right? Because now we have buyer broker agreements, they get locked into somebody right away. You need to start working that really soon, right? And then you're using that referral network, hopefully, that you've already built, right? So instead of Tom just wanting stuff from the Chicago office of wherever, well, now, hey guys, I'm giving you this. Here's this client. They want to go to Chicago and buy a $10 million condo. You know, you better keep me in mind next time, you know, you're gonna hook me up with a buyer this end. And then you got a referral fee out of it, right? Now, usually that's 25%. Again, I'm generalizing. But that's a big amount, right? If they're gonna buy a $10 million listing, that's a $75,000, if I had that right, before splits, obviously. So again, it's just you want to capture that revenue, right? So I'll say locally, a caveat here is you really need to know the market very well. So you'll see a lot of agents that focus in a specific area. Maybe it's Siesta Key, maybe it's Anna Maria Island, maybe it's Lakewood Ranch. For crosstown moves, they get in they have hard time because if I only work siesta key and I know my client wants to move out to well, the Founders Club, for instance. If you don't know the Founders Club, then it's kind of a hard argument to say, yeah, I'm going to help you buy. I mean, you can do that based on your personality. Maybe you build a friendship. But are you really adding value? Why wouldn't they just go to an agent that specializes in the Founders Club that knows, the club and the association and the fact that they're going to build, Lorraine Road's going to eventually attach, so the houses on the eastern side of that place, they're going to lose value in about a year. Like those sort of details would typically be lost on somebody that focuses in one area. So my advice would be, this takes time, obviously. Get a broad understanding of most neighborhoods in your market. If you're focused on the luxury market, it's not that hard because there's not a ton of luxury neighborhoods. Now, if you're doing this on $500,000 sales, yeah, it's hard to know every single neighborhood in Sarasota. It's tough. But the more you know, the better informed you are, the more value you add to your client, and the more willing they are to let you help them on the buy side when it's their turn. So, make sense? Okay, go through this. Okay, step number 4, earn a referral. Again, it's like no duh, of course, right? This is stuff you don't think about. So I'm sorry if you're offended by my 5-step process. It should be, dummies for realtors or something like that. Whatever the wrong pronunciation of realtors is. But earn the referral. And I say this because you got to be consistent here, right? You have to have a process to this, or you'll lose out on an adjacent revenue opportunity. Okay, so the first thing, again, this sounds dumb, ask for a referral. Ask. A lot of people aren't successful in sales because they never actually ask for the sale, right? You'll have a conversation and it'll just be implied that you want them to buy something from you. You need to actually ask for it, right? Um, Same thing, ask for the referral. No one's going to be offended if you say, hey, I hope you had a great experience. This was awesome, whatever. I'd really appreciate if you could refer me to your friends and family. Do you have anyone now that I could talk to that you think that might be interested in moving down here, or maybe they're looking to purchase up in New Jersey where they are, and I can really hook them up with a great local agent? Again, have that planned out. Don't walk into that haphazardly. Script it out. Use Chat GPT if you need to. I'm sure there's some awesome scripts on there. But kind of work out that conversation in your head, whether it's in person or an email or text. But you got to ask for it. Um, if they don't give one to you, then again, do well by your client in the transaction, build a rapport, dare say become friends. I don't know if you can truly become a friend. So there are some. Glenn's your good friend, right? He was your client, I think, at some point, or am I making that up? I am. Okay. No, I wasn't. Okay. Um, so obviously, if they're your friend, then yeah, they're probably going to they're going to refer you, but kind of have that rapport, stay top of mind. Okay, so let's say you don't develop that personal relationship. That's fine. I don't with most of mine. Um, get them in your CRM, right? If you're with EXP, you've got KB Core, right? So get them in there even after you close the transaction. This is a big mistake, right? So you close it, you think, "Woo, I no longer need to care about them," right? When you get to the point, I've been doing this for 9 years now. Most of my business is repeat clients, either buying or selling something new or referring me to one of their family friends, sort of clients. 90% of my business is that. So you have to maintain contact. And I don't do this as well as I should, actually. Keep them in your CRM. When it's a holiday, they get an email or a text or whatever you decide to do for your drips, right? You've got the birthday. So, maybe there's KB Core does drip campaigns for that sort of thing, right? So we'll send it out automatically. Or just maybe you get a notification. Hey, it's Linda's birthday on Wednesday. Give Linda a call. So I give her a call and be like, hey, happy birthday. It keeps you top of mind because when you initially ask for the referral, it's time based, right? They may be like, no, I don't know anyone right now, or yeah, my cousin's thinking about it, but but when you go back to them in 4 months, it's a new opportunity to ask for the referral again. Again, plan that out, have the conversation. Don't just make some haphazard, happy birthday. Oh, hey, plan that, script it out. But it's a new opportunity and maybe something has changed since the last time you talked to them. But you should be doing all that stuff, right? Sending them newsletters. I know, Matt, you send out newsletters. Um, Whatever you think is appealing to them, right? So
Thank
if
you
this is a
God that she don't
luxury,
work because she's out the area.
if this
She
is a
already
luxury
told
client,
me in a way that we show
maybe
up.
it's hey, what's the new seafood place that opened down here? Prime, Ocean Prime. Okay. So Ocean Prime, it's $60 to get like I don't know, a side of fries at that place, right? Um, but if you got a luxury client, they may not have been there yet, right? Because a lot of times they don't have time to look at things and get out. So maybe you do a little review, or you just send them an email and say, "Hey, this place just opened. It was awesome." Give a little review, or just add some value to things that are interesting to them, right? And this will be a different class, but wealthy people, they put on their pants just like us, but their interests are different. They're all about making their life easier and more productive. So transportation, whether that be new routes, I know this sounds silly, but new routes that Sarasota Airport offers, right? Maybe they travel for business a lot and you just learn that Sarasota opened up 3 new routes. It goes here, here, here. Something like that might actually be valuable. So you pass that information on to them, right? Or it's a new luxury restaurant or I don't know, a new high-end shop that you saw somewhere. Again, it's just an excuse to stay top of mind and stay in contact with them. But tailor that towards the client, right? I'm not going to send that, the Ocean Prime stuff to somebody that just bought they used an FHA loan to buy, they're not going to. What are you doing sending me this stuff? This is ridiculous, right? Um, Again, I know that sounds pretentious, but you're catering towards your specific client. So, um, okay, post sale value. I just talked about that. All right, the goal here should be to expand your sphere by one layer. Everyone knows the sphere of influence, right? So that's basically when you start, you're going to have your first deal 90% of the time. I'm making that up, sorry, but 90% of the time is going to be someone in your sphere, right? So a family member, a friend, kind of that
I
first
pray she worked with me.
level of
That's right.
influence.
And
Um,
it's only 6 months.
so the goal in all of this is continue to make that sphere larger, right? So you just close with the client, right? So you've got them in your sphere now. Your goal should be to become an expert with that next layer out, right? So your clients,
What is
friends,
the
and
typical
family, right?
rate
So that's
for
the target when you're building referrals.
furnished
And
vacation
then once you
rentals? Sorry,
get
furnished
them, you try and
rental.
expand from there. And before you know, you're 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon or whatever the thing is. If you guys don't know that, I apologize. Do you know who Kevin Bacon is, don't you? No? See, look at this. Um, anyway, but that's the goal is to continue to build on that sphere layer by layer. And before you know it, you're like Tom here walking down the street and everybody says, "Hey, Tom, what's going on, Tom?" Right? And, that's the relationship you want. Now, if you're not that person, that's fine too. You don't have to do this to be successful. But if you want to take that next level, I guarantee, the top 10 agents that when they go to realtor events or when they're out, people know them, they recognize them. There's just discussions because they're out there. And that's when you get to that level, you don't need to advertise. That is your advertisement. You're a walking advertisement, right? You don't have to send mailers. Everyone knows that blah, blah, blah does, Longboat Key or whatever. So that's the ultimate goal. Okay. Last one is probably the hardest one. And we could spend a lot of time on this too. And I'm sorry we're running over, so I'll be quick with it. Get the neighbor's business. This is the most important, right? So you got the house on a great street. How do I get the rest of the houses on the street? Right. So there's lots of things that you can do. Don't just do nothing. Don't think they're just going to see your sign parked out front and be like, oh, hey, I'm going to use Carlo when I list my house. Right. They might. And I think signs are beneficial. But you need to have a campaign that says, I'm going to reach all these neighbors. And by the end of this listing, or maybe 3 months after the listing, they're all going to know who I am. If they're going to sell, they're going to reach out to me first, or at least be in that mix of agents. So I'll tell you things that I do specifically. I talked about this a little bit in the production class. I use mailers quite a bit in this market, demographic wise. People still read mail, right? They'll give it a short amount of time, and it's got to look really good and slick, but they'll still read it. So just listed, just sold postcards, and then I do a high quality kind of hard stock mailer that I do monthly. I use Wise Pelican for that. I put a link in here. They're really good. You basically, you know, draw out the area. They'll give you a map. You kind of show them exactly where you want to do it. It figures out all of the addresses and just does it for you. Okay, brokers opens. When you have a high-end luxury listing, you're going to do a broker's open. We can talk about that as well. You need to make that engaging and different and give people or agents a reason to go to that. But you're going to invite all the neighbors to that, right? Even though it's for brokers, you're going to invite all the neighbors to that because they're going to feel VIP. I get to go to this broker's open. There's going to be this guitarist and a bar and an appetizers, and I'm going to go look in my neighbor's house and see what their curtains look like and what color couch they have, and all that's great, right? And actually, it might actually sell the house because they may want to buy that house, or they may have a friend or family they might want to buy that house. But really, you're engaging with that street. So you're getting them to see what you do at brokers opens and the kind of things that you do differently. So when it's their turn to sell, you're like top of mind again. We talked a little about this in Matt's as well, the dinner party thing. I think that's great. So you close on the house, you've developed a relationship, and again, you ask because you have to be proactive. Hey, after closing, I'm going to host a dinner party for you guys, a month down the road. What I'm going to do, explain why. This is going to allow you to, you just moved in the neighborhood. This will get you a chance to meet all your neighbors, and you're going to have this cool dinner party. I'm going to bring in a chef, or it's going to be catered. I'll take care of everything. I'll invite everyone. I'll figure out, there'll be some sort of entertainment there, whether that's like again, a guitar guy playing, or maybe, I don't know, get creative with it. You bring in a tarot card reader or something funky to get people there. But you're going to, so have them agree to that, right? At closing or before closing, and then hold the event, right? Invite all the neighbors. Don't promote it as, sorry, I keep picking on you, Tom. Tom's hosting this event, but it's going to be Mr. and Mrs. Smith are hosting a get to know me sort of thing, right? Whatever that is. And get all the neighbors there, and then you're there, right? Again, this is a soft sell, but eventually it's going to be your turn at the table to talk about who you are and what you do. And you're going to say, I'm the agent. I set this up for everybody. And you're showing everyone on the street that you go above and beyond for your clients, right? You're making that personal connection, and you're networking at a more meaningful level, right? Again, there's a cost to that. But if you just closed on that big $10 million house, you can afford that little dinner party, right? Rather than buying, the latest 72 Mustang or whatever Matt's gonna park in his driveway next. 72 a bad year. 73. Okay, I was close. Um, Not to pick on Matt. Yeah, I guess I was picking on you a little bit. Okay, so things like that. So again, getting the neighbor's business is the hardest, but also the most important part, right? Never let that listing, that transaction just die on a vine, right? You want to sell a house on that street, and then you want to own the street, basically. You can't just wish that to happen. You have to have a plan and actually see it through. But these are just some of the things well, some of them have been successful for me, but this is the kind of stuff that shows you think outside of the box that 99.9% of the other agents aren't doing, with the exception of the mailers, but certainly like the happy hour events and the dinner parties and things like that. No one's really doing that. So, okay, I'll be quick. Here's just the example of some of my mailers. The postcards are here. You kind of see those to the right. And then there's my, well, the front and back of my 4-pager. Again, it says magazine on there, right? So people think that it's part of their paper or something. I don't know. But they open it, right? And I have literally gotten like at least two listings from that little magazine mailer that I do. On the inside of that, one page has recently solds because everyone likes to know what's sold in their neighborhood and for how much. And then one page is all about me and something different that I do, right? So I'll put stuff about product placement in there or cinematic videos, something that they're going to look at and be like, huh, this guy does things a little differently, right? That's what I want them to feel out of it. Because for one, if they list and let's say they don't know me, they might give me a shot, right? I'll be one of six agents they interview. And then once you get to the interview, you really got to let your personality and charisma and your approach kind of win the day for you. But my goal is always get in the door because I know if I get in the door, I'm going to beat out those other five agents because I'm just think that I'm better than them, I guess. But I don't know. Yeah, right. I'm confident. Yeah. Okay. Just a few more, I promise. Okay, I think we're done here actually. So, in summary, don't be a one and done, right? Those are five steps. Not all the steps are equal. They seem very intuitive, but oh, yeah, our camera went out again. But follow through, and again, each one of these we can go into more detail. And please do that. I'm gonna have the last slide on here that just has all my contact information. Sorry about that, guys. We'll figure out why that's doing that. We're gonna get these right eventually. Yeah. So here's my contact information. If you want to go into any one of these in detail, please let me know. I would gladly talk to you about any of this stuff. I have no, these are literally my secret sauces, right? So typically people wouldn't share stuff like that, but if you guys win, I win. So I'm definitely willing to help people. All right. Any questions? Cool. All right. Well, I'll give you the presentation and we'll give you a recording of this as well. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.